Austria is a popular destination to move to, and about 150,000 people are moving to Austria every single year. So therefore the question arises as to which federal state of Austria is the best one to move to. Since I have already uploaded a video comparing the 26 cantons of Switzerland and the 16 federal states of Germany, I would like to compare the 9 federal states of Austria in this video. Specifically, I will analyze the federal states of Vorarlberg, Tyrol, Salzburg, Upper Austria, Carinthia, Styria, Lower Austria, Burgenland and Vienna in unemployment rate, security, economy and housing costs. At the request of some viewers, I will not include the climate in this video. The result of this comparison exclusively depends on these 4 factors. Since which federal state is most attractive to you depends on your personal preferences, it is of course not possible to define the best federal state in an absolute manner. First, we will go through each topic mentioned previously, followed by a conclusion at the end of the video. I will determine a score for each state and topic, with 1 being the best and 0 the worst. And in the end, all points are added up and it becomes clear which federal state performs best. Here is a quick example of how the points are distributed to the federal states. Let's say in terms of unemployment rate, state A performs the worst with an unemployment rate of 15%, so that state gets 0 points in this regard. State B with an unemployment rate of 5% has the lowest unemployment rate and therefore receives 1 whole point. All other states receive a value between 0 and 1 based on how the unemployment rate compares to the unemployment rate of the best and the worst state. To be transparent, I'll display the linear function in every topic, and all sources are linked down in the video description. Let's begin with the unemployment rate. You probably don't want to move to a state that has a high unemployment rate. A high unemployment rate means that there either is a shortage of jobs or too many people looking for a job, which makes it difficult for you to start your new life in Austria. The unemployment rate in Burgenland is at 11.6%, that in Carinthia at 14.5%, Lower Austria 10.6%, Upper Austria 7.6%, Salzburg 9.7%, Styria 9.8%, Tyrol 11.7%, Vorarlberg 9% and Vienna 15.6%. The unemployment rate in Vienna seems to be the highest, while the lowest unemployment rate can be found in the federal state of Upper Austria. It should also be noted that this data comes from January 2021. The unemployment rate is therefore rather high in every federal state due to the economic downswing. Since Upper Austria has the lowest unemployment rate, it receives 1 full point. Vienna with the highest unemployment rate 0 points, and all other federal states receive a value between 0 and 1 based on how good they perform in relation to Upper Austria and Vienna. Next comes security. The number of criminal offenses per 100,000 inhabitants in Burgenland is at only 2,994, while in the federal state of Vienna there were a total of 9,010 criminal offenses per 100,000 inhabitants. Of course, it should be noted that cities usually have more criminal offenses per inhabitant than rural areas. Each federal state again receives a value between 0 and 1, and we will continue with a brief conclusion. If we only look at unemployment rate and security, the federal state of Upper Austria performs best. Upper Austria is followed by Styria, Burgenland, Vorarlberg, Lower Austria, Salzburg, Tyrol, Carinthia and Vienna. Let's see how this ranking changes when we take the economy and housing costs into account. So let's continue with the economy. A strong economy increases the likelihood of prosperity and therefore plays an important part in making you feel comfortable. So I think it makes sense to take a closer look at each state's gross domestic product per inhabitant. It is surprising that the state of Salzburg does better than the capital Vienna in this regard. The gross domestic product per capita is at 52,400 euros in Salzburg. Burgenland does worst with the GDP per capita of 30,700 euros. Each state again receives a value between 0 and 1, and we will continue with the housing costs. Rising housing costs are not only a hot potato in politics, but housing costs usually also account for a big chunk of a person's income. That's why I'd like to take a look at the average rent, including operating costs per square meter in 2019. Burgenland performs best here. The average rental price is only 6 euros and 2 cents per square meter. Citizens of Salzburg have to pay the most for their rent, 9 euros and 53 cents. It is surprising that rents appear to be higher in Salzburg, Vorarlberg and Tyrol than in Vienna. Again, we assign points to each state, and now we are in the position to see which federal state performs best among these factors. If we add up all the points, it turns out that the federal state of Upper Austria clearly comes first. Upper Austria is followed by Styria, Burgenland, Lower Austria, Vorarlberg, Salzburg, Carinthia, and Vienna. As in the video where I compare the German federal states with each other, it turns out that the capital city always performs somewhat low. Let us take a look at each federal state in Austria, starting at the bottom. At 15.6%, Vienna has the highest unemployment rate of all federal states, and the number of criminal offenses per 100,000 inhabitants is also clearly the highest. That is why Vienna can score neither in unemployment rate nor in security. On the other hand, Vienna is the federal state with the second highest GDP per capita, and therefore receives almost a whole point in this topic. However, the housing costs are also quite high. Tyrol also has high housing costs, and the unemployment rate is quite high. On the other hand, Tyrol has a strong economy and security is significantly higher than in Vienna. Carinthia scores great thanks to low housing costs and high security. But the high unemployment rate leaves a lot to be desired, and the GDP is not high either. Salzburg has the highest GDP of all federal states, which is why it receives one whole point there. The unemployment rate is also low. But as good as the economy is, as high are the housing costs. Housing costs are the highest of all of Austria. The number of criminal offenses per 100,000 inhabitants is also the second highest after Vienna. The next federal state is Vorarlberg. Vorarlberg scores very well thanks to its low unemployment rate, high security and good economy. Unfortunately, the housing prices are the second highest in Austria after Salzburg. The fact that Vorarlberg shares a border to Switzerland probably also plays a role here. Lower Austria scores well in every regard. Especially in security it performs well, but living space also appears to be affordable. It is therefore not surprising that the economy is not all that strong. This is a point where Lower Austria could improve. Let's continue with the top 3 best federal states of Austria. Burgenland performs very interestingly. It is the safest and cheapest state, but also the state with the weakest economy. The unemployment rate is at 11.6%, right between the best and the worst performing state. Styria comes in second with only a small lead over Burgenland. Styria can score some points in every topic, but it scores particularly well in security and low unemployment rate. Upper Austria clearly ranks first. It is the state with the lowest unemployment rate and security is also very high. And despite the good economy, housing costs are low. It has to be mentioned that there is a direct dependency between GDP and the rental prices per square meter. The sum of the points scored in economy and the points scored in living costs is around 1 for every state. This also makes sense because a strong economy attracts people, which increases the demand of living space and therefore making it more expensive. Vienna has the highest ratio between economic strength and housing costs, followed by Upper Austria and Carinthia. So you can see that the federal states of Austria are performing very differently from one another. All federal states have a different profile and only you can say which characteristics you value most and which federal state suits you best.